the match has finished Tottenham 4, West Ham 1, and I've got to say, I'm a bit grumpy, more than a bit grumpy. Got the right ump after that result. I was going to say performance. It was a sort of 15-minute spell where Spurs just got much the better of West Ham. Much the better of West Ham in that. Aside from that, I mean, it was 1-1 at half-time. We were half decent. I thought we were doing okay. We really, really were. And it's amazing how quickly it can turn. And even in your own mind, you're thinking we're doing okay. And as a football fan, they said in a commentary that if West Ham win this, they go above Tottenham. So we were 1-0 up. So you're thinking, well, this could happen. We don't have a bad record against Tottenham, do we? But today we were... For parts of that game, we were completely and utterly outclassed. And you could argue, actually, even the points where we were on top, they were still coming close. Even when we were 1-0 up, I think they'd had 10 corners or something like that. So, obviously, Tottenham were always in the game and they play that sort of attacking brand of football. I guess where they're always going to be. So, no complaints with the result. It just turned sour a lot quicker and a lot more drastically than I thought. Certainly, when we were 1-0 up, if you'd have told me West Ham were going to lose the game, we'd have thought, okay, right, I can sort of believe that. But maybe it'll be 2-1 or something like that, because actually we were defending pretty damn well. Some excellent tackling, actually, it has to be said, from the likes of Heung-min, from Emerson, from Rodriguez, from Wan-Bissaka. We were doing okay. So I think if you'd have told me then you're going to get absolutely spanked, it's going to be 4-1, you're going to have someone sent off, and probably a scoreline of 8-2 would be more reflective, I would have thought, no, there's no way the game can turn sour to that extent. But it really did. It really did turn that badly. Look, first of all, can you please send in your fan cams? If you're annoyed, frustrated, you're certainly not going to be happy. Send us in. Basically, pick up your mobile phone, put it in landscape mode, so that way, and film yourself and send it in to us. The link is in the description below where you can send it into, and we'll publish it on this channel or on the other Hammers Chat channel. We will publish them, and we'll get all your views and your frustrations out there as well. So send them in. It doesn't even matter if you're just talking for 2 minutes. Talk for 2 minutes, talk for 10 minutes. Do what you want. Get your frustrations out. Send in your fan cams. For the moment, you're sort of stuck with me. Look, if what you want is a blow-by-blow account of every goal, then you've probably come to the wrong place. Because I do have the ump. That's one of the things with these early games, isn't it? You know, they can either sort of make or break your weekends, really, and that's not good. How we capitulated. I'll tell you what doesn't make it any better is the fact that a lot of players were away on international duty, but there were 4 players that weren't, and that was Aaron Wan-Bissaka, that was Jean-Claude Todibo, Max Kilman, and Emerson. So you would expect the defence to hold up a little better than it did. Ultimately, I don't really blame them. Now, this is going to sound a little bit crazy if you've not seen the game. Hold on a second. You've conceded 4 goals. I don't really blame them. I don't overly blame the goalkeeper. It was more the fact that I felt because we were attacking and trying to get back into the game, that's when we had our pants pulled down. There was one particular one, I think it was possibly Jarrod Bowen, he was on the edge of the box, he was dribbling, he got dispossessed. Maybe he could have done a little bit better, but I thought Bowen more or less looked sharp today. And they just broke on us, and they scored. They scored, and Todibo was pretty much left on his own. And if you'd have watched that goal in isolation, particularly as they very much came down with their left-hand side, our right-hand side, you could have been forgiven for thinking, well, hold on, nothing's changed between this Chelsea game and this Tottenham game and the Chelsea game. But because they sort of came down the same channel, and maybe you'd have a point. It was a sort of goal that we seem to have conceded a lot this season, the sort of goal. You could have just taken Mavropanos and put him in that position, and you'd have had a sort of rerun of some of the goals that were being conceded earlier on in the campaign. So it wasn't great, but we were attacking and trying to get back into the game. So I guess there's that, but I'm slightly concerned by a few things. I think particularly the lack of, once it got to 4-1, the lack of fight. Well, I say the lack of fight. The great irony is the one person I thought had completely given up was Mohammed Kudus. And the irony is that Mohammed Kudus was our best player up to that point. He looked back to his best. He'd forced an early shot, basically did an early shot, good run by Jarrod Bowen, nice dribble. crossed the ball over, and he shot the ball with his right foot, but I thought he produced a good save from the Spurs goalkeeper. They basically, that was on 10 minutes. They repeated the move on 18 minutes. Not an exact carbon copy, but Bowen to Kudus, and he scored on that occasion. But it wasn't just that. I thought the way he was taking the ball, to use a rugby term, he was taking the ball into contact well. I thought he was dribbling well, he was protecting the ball well, and I thought, given a certain degree of licence, actually, and I thought he was causing the Spurs defence an awful lot of bother, actually. But when we went 4-1 down, it stopped running, it stopped fighting, and I mean that in a footballing term, and it was evident. If you're going to punish yourself and watch that game back, you'll see what I mean. There was a few manoeuvres where he lost the ball and he just didn't track back, he didn't run back to try and get it back. So it was quite telling that really it was him that was going to get sent off for, well, actually, I was going to say actual fighting. Fighting would be perhaps picking too much out of it. I think all you're going to hear about, particularly from the mainstream media, is the yellow cards, the double yellow, the VAR. I'm pretty sure when Match of the Day is on later, that's what they'll be picking apart, and there'll be a big loving for Tottenham, and I sort of get it. So I don't want to spend a huge amount of time on it. He was frustrated by that point. I think he did have a little kick at Van der Ven, and that's the truth be known. I think he knew he wasn't trying to kick the ball to get the ball. I think he'd probably say that he was, but I think by that point he was frustrated. And he he pushed Van der Ven in the face, but before that, Van der Ven had his hands on his chest. So Van der Ven's hands were like there on Kudus, then Kudus went like that and pushed him in the face. Obviously he went down like a sack of spuds, no pun intended. He made out he'd been... The sort of thing, if you need someone in the nose, you might see someone go down. Not that I have. Or that I'd know what that is. I've seen it in MMA. So if someone got kneed in the nose, they might go down like that. That happened. Richarlison went in, and Richarlison accidentally made contact with the back of Kudus' head. So you had two Tottenham players rolling around with their heads in their hands. I think, to be fair, I think Richarlison might have been hurt. I think we'll forgive him that, because that must hurt. But Van der Ven was not hurt at all. And then there was a bit of a melee, and then Kudus pushed someone else in the face. And funny enough, he didn't go down. Fair play to him, because I thought that was the most aggressive thing that he did. The referee had booked him, which I thought was a sensible thing to do, but then when presented with the evidence of VAR that basically Kudus had been running around kicking people and pushing two people in the face, basically, he had to send him off. I think he did have to send him off, and I just think it was frustration on Kudus' part, and it's a real shame. We'll miss him for 3 games now, at exactly the point where he was coming back into form, and he's not had the best time of it. I think Ghana are not doing particularly well in their AFCON qualification group, and he's taken some criticism from the Ghanaian fans, and I think his style has faded somewhat. It's a real shame, because I just thought he looked excellent. I'd be interested. I've got a couple of my friends that support Tottenham. I'd be interested to speak to them. Not today, or tomorrow actually, but maybe if I speak to them in a few days' time, I'll be very interested to hear how much of a threat they thought that he was, because I thought he carried a lot of threat to them. But anyway, he got sent off, and it wasn't the turning point. The game was gone, and Tottenham were better and all of that type of stuff. But it sort of, there was a symbolism to it. It felt symbolic that he would be sent off. It felt that West Ham's recovery, which I guess we'd showed against Ipswich and we'd shown in the first half against Tottenham, I think it showed that West Ham's recovery was paper thin by that point. And it didn't take much to smash through it. And now, as good and as hard work as we've done, I feel it feels to me, and maybe, let me know what you think. I might be reading this wrong, but it feels like we're sort of back to where we were after Chelsea, and that's not great, because I do think it was like 15 minutes of madness. Anyway, yeah, Kudus went off. What was a little bit odd was, as Kudus was walking off, and I don't think he'd done himself any favours, but he had been sent off by that point, and there was a number of players who were trying to calm it down, and one of them was the Tottenham goalkeeper, who I thought was, I don't mean in terms of goalkeeping, but in a way he sort of tried to calm it down. I thought he was excellent. Vicario was excellent. He was actually dragging Tottenham players out of the way. He wanted to calm the situation down. So fair play to him. I thought he did really well. But as Kudus was walking off, Postecoglou was sort of like this, and then sort of scowling at him as he walked past. Oh, mate, come on, leave it out. It's done. He's gone. He's gone. I thought he might follow him down the tunnel or something at one point. I don't know whether Tottenham took their foot off the gas at that point, or that was enough, or just our moment of madness. Even down to 10 men. Lopetegui obviously brought on Mavropanos. He'd made some changes. I think that's the other thing that's probably... I know I'm jumping from one thing to another on this. It's not really a review. It's just really me spending 10 minutes talking about my frustrations. But, I'm sure a lot of you feel exactly the same. I'm sure you're really frustrated anyway. Gio's review will be a lot better than this. He'll tell you in sequence how certain things happen. But I felt that he took a little bit too long to make the substitutions. Not in the way that, like sometimes Moyes would take 10 or 15 minutes. Not like he got them warming up and set them back down. I felt he identified the problem, but it seemed like it was 2-1 and it was 4-1 like that. And it probably was. And the substitutions didn't happen. And I just felt that by the time they did, we'd sort of lost all our spirit. And I thought that was sort of exemplified by the way that Kudus responded to the shenanigans that we discussed a moment ago. Just other players to pick out. I thought Wan-Bissaka. I mean, it's a real shame. Some players, we weren't terrible. I've seen West Ham play much worse than that. And when we do our player ratings over on Patreon on Monday, there'll be some players who get some higher marks than normally. We've had games before where West Ham have been awful all game, and some players have had 2s and 3s and stuff like that. I thought some players played pretty well. I thought Bowen looked sharp enough during the game. I know he lost possession, perhaps responsible for one of the goals. I thought Wan-Bissaka, yeah, okay, was he out of position for their 4th? Yes, he was, but Emerson was also out of position for possibly their 3rd. Honestly, it was. But we were trying to attack. We were trying to get back in the game, and I thought Wan-Bissaka was superb. Maybe superb's pushing it a bit, but I thought he was really good. You can point out to me, and you could point out to me maybe, 2 or 3 things that maybe Wan-Bissaka didn't do great. But I could probably come back and point out 10 things that he did really, really well in this game. And I thought he looked decent. And so I thought there were some individual performances sort of cemented around this 15 minutes of mayhem, if you want. And I do think that's a shame. So I'm quite sure there'll be a lot of questions asked about Julen Lopetegui and about his job. But I'm certainly not throwing the baby out with the bathwater yet on this, because I do, and I said this before the game, I do think Tottenham, I think there was an overreaction to what happened with them at Brighton. I think they had a bad half. And I said that at the time. I said it in the preview. I've said it plenty of times. I don't think they're as bad as a lot of the media were making out, and it seemed like the media were baying for blood to get rid of Postecoglou. I think he's a good coach. Bit aggro on the touchline, but I think he's a good coach, and I think as I've maintained, I think Tottenham are a top 6 team, and I think there was just too much was being made of it. So I do believe that they could almost on their day tear anyone apart and cause anyone problems. And some of their players were absolutely excellent. As a West Ham fan, it was quite difficult. I know Mikel Antonio had one sort of exchange with Mickey van der Ven, which was quite entertaining and a bit of a highlight. But he still looked. I thought he looked knackered after 30 minutes, Antonio. I don't know what you thought. But I was a little bit jealous of, I think, Solanke. As much as anything, I know Tottenham are going to have good players. And I know by and large Tottenham will probably have a lot of the time better players than West Ham, and that's fine. I sort of understand. I understand that, and I was never really jealous of Harry Kane or But Solanke was somebody we could have got, should have got. We came very close to buying him from Bournemouth last season, and he wasn't even Tottenham's best player, but the way he played and just his physicality, his pace, he's quite comfortable. He's quite comfortable on the ball as a footballer. I looked at him. I thought, oh yeah, we're missing some of that. There's no doubt about it. And it felt like we was missing a centre forward, maybe. In terms of the tackling, I thought Rodriguez was quite cheap, giving away possession, but I thought some of his tackles were excellent. Kilman, some really good tackles. I thought Emerson started the game really, really well, and Aaron Wan-Bissaka. It could have been worse, let's put it that way. I thought a lot of our defence did some good stuff. I think it would have been worse without them. Right, one thing I've been putting off, and I'll finish the video with this, is Lucas Paqueta. I'm trying to be mindful because I don't think, in his position, I don't think I would cope particularly well. I have to say that. I think you feel like the weight of the world's on your shoulders. I think, you know, the English FA are investigating you, your home Football Association investigating you, and then it's like the betting irregularities, and there's all this stuff coming up saying basically if you're found guilty in that, then there may be a criminal investigation. All this stuff, I think it would weigh so heavily on me. And I don't know, and I said this to build up to it, I don't know how he's able to focus on it. So, and I think some people can, I think he'll be very, very strong mentally, and I don't think he is. And that's honestly, there's no criticism from me, because I don't think I'd be able to do it. But I felt it showed in this game. I was surprised he was selected. Don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting for a moment that Carlos Soler came on and did a whole lot better. In fact, I thought there was something wrong with his temperament. But it was, I mean, almost the most predictable thing of the game was a card for Lucas Paqueta. Probably one thing I got right in my prediction. But I do think the game had gone. By the time the substitution was made, the game had gone, and maybe you'd have seen something better from Soler. I'm not claiming Soler is going to be the answer to all West Ham's problems. I'm not even completely sure what type of player he is. But I don't know. Listen, I'm just rambling on now, aren't I? Just very, very frustrating. And you know what? You've got patience of a saint if you've sat here listening to pretty much 17 minutes of me rambling on and tell you how grumpy and annoyed I am. Anyway, I'm going to try and forget it for the weekend now, and try and enjoy the rest of the weekends. They know how to spoil a weekend, don't they, West Ham? But it's not. I'm quite sure a lot of stuff will be you know, end of Lopetegui, and I'm recording this. I don't know what anyone's going to say, because I've started recording this 5 minutes after the end of the game. But I'm not ready to throw the baby out with the bathwater now. But his pressure's back on. That's it. The pressure is back on. Whatever had been alleviated by, you know, Brentford, Ipswich, it's back on now. It's back on. You can't lose. I would be contradicting myself if the other day I made the argument that the game against Tottenham is a way to embed yourself into West Ham folklore, is to make yourself a bit of a hero. That I felt it would like. Your favour with the West Ham fan base as a rating, I felt it would have boosted his rating right up by beating Tottenham. The counter opinion would obviously be, you can't lose heavily to Tottenham, because that, you know, the opposite had happened, and he was under a bit of pressure anyway. I have no doubt he's going to be under pressure now. And ridiculous as it sounds, it now puts quite a lot of emphasis and quite a lot of weight on the Manchester United game. I've heard a lot of people say West Ham have had a tough start to the season in terms of the fixtures. The fixture list wasn't kind to West Ham. I don't know about that. I think the fact that we didn't really have to do much travelling, and, well, we've played all of our games up to today in the capital. I think it's been okay. So I'm not sure that... I don't look forward and see this massive easy run of games coming up. I really don't, you know. So, yeah, be really interesting. A lot of emphasis, a lot of focus on the Manchester United game now. And it's a real shame, because I did think, particularly for the first half, that we started to play a little bit better. But you know what, football's, and particularly supporting a football team's rarely simple, is it? Anyway, I said I was going to wrap up the video a minute and 40 seconds ago. There you go. That's me waffling. Thank goodness I pressed record, otherwise I have to do all this again. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and let us know what you thought. And don't forget, please do send in your fan cams, and we'll put your thoughts. We'll show everybody else how annoyed you are.